The 1995 IMSA Exxon World Sports Car Championship opened on the high banks of Daytona, marking Ferrari's return to the classic Rolex-sponsored 24-hour race for the first time in more than 20 years. Ferrari captured the top 4 starting positions with a pair of Pirelli-shod Scandia Ferraris on row 1. That pair dominated the first 8 hours, giving up the lead only twice during pit stops. Once to the Euro Motorsports Ferrari, and again to the Momo Ferrari shared by Wayne Taylor, Giampiero Moretti, Didier Taze, and Eliseo Salazar. The all-new Dyson Racing Ford R&S Mark III was the first world sports car to call it quits when the engine blew just before the 3rd hour. At just after 10:30 Saturday night, Michele Alboreto brought the leading Ferrari into the pits for routine service. But this time, the number 33 machine refused to start with Stefan Johansson behind the wheel. That put the number 30 Ferrari out front, followed by the Scandia Ferraris in 2nd and 3rd. Shortly after 1 a.m., the number 30 machine encountered similar problems, refiring during routine service. During the darkest hours, the Ferraris fell victim to continued loss of compression, and by dawn, their lead had dissipated. That put the number 10 Le Mans category Porsche out front, with the 1994 winning Brix Racing Oldsmobile still in the hunt. Several unscheduled stops to tend to a sticking throttle and loose bodywork with 7 hours remaining spoiled the Brix team's chance of the overall win. The Kremer brothers' well-prepared Porsche Spyder K8, shared by Marco Werner, Giovanni Lavaggi, and former Le Mans 24-hour winners Jürgen Lassig and Christophe Boucher, earned Porsche its 19th overall Daytona victory. The driving trio of Jeremy Dale, Frederick Ekblom, and Jay Cochran earned the Exxon World Sports Car victory, giving the Brix Racing team the early points lead. Former Formula One driver Michele Alboreto earned Ferrari its 2nd consecutive pole at round 2 along the formidable terrain at the 43rd running of the Exxon MasterCard 12 Hours of Sebring. Oldsmobile's Jeremy Dale jumped to the early lead at the green, but was passed by the number 3 Ferrari of Fermin Velez on the first lap of the 12-hour race. Shortly after passing Dale for 2nd, James Weaver brought the Dyson Ford into the pits to inspect an oil pressure problem, followed by gearbox trouble that forced team owner Rob Dyson to park it off course. Velez's first close call occurred during hour 1, when the number 77 GTS car of Van Vliet overcorrected, going off course right next to the number 3 Ferrari. Velez gave up the early lead to Fabrizio Barbazza's yellow Ferrari during the first round of pit stops, but suddenly Barbazza slowed on course while running 3rd behind Jeremy Dale, putting Velez back in the lead. At just after noon, Velez handed the leading Ferrari over to team owner Andy Evans, and as Evans and Jay Cochran ran nose to tail, dark clouds rolled in over Sebring. When the skies opened up, Evans stopped for Pirelli rain tires, handing the lead over to Cochran as visibility over the 3.7-mile circuit deteriorated. Evans spun the 2nd-place Ferrari off into the grass and came back across the track right in front of the 3rd-place Chevy driven by Derek Bell. Then Cochran's advantage ended abruptly as he impacted the outside pit wall, crossed the track, and slid along the inside before coming to rest, bringing out a full-course caution. After the next rash of pit stops, the lead changed hands several times, with the Momo Danka-sponsored Ferrari of Didier Taze out front. But when Taze lost everything but 4th gear, the car was towed behind the pit wall for repairs. That placed the pole-winning Sequent Perry Ellis Ferrari of Michele Alboreto in the lead, a lead that would last until just before sundown, when a lengthy pit stop to replace a broken CV joint put Derek Bell and the 1994 Sebring-winning Chevrolet up front. At 6:20 p.m., Mother Nature brought out a red flag, a delay that would last for just over an hour. As darkness fell, Spain's Fermin Velez took over the lead, and with just minutes remaining, dashed into the pits for a splash and go, on his way to his 2nd Exxon World Sports Car victory. Joined by team owner Evans and the able driving services of Belgian Eric van der Poel, the Scandia team lifted the Spaniard high into the air in a victory lane celebration that marked Ferrari's 10th Sebring victory, the manufacturer's first win at the historic airport circuit since 1972. Jeremy Dale emerged as the Drivers' Championship points leader after 36 hours of endurance racing in Florida. Mauro Baldi earned Ferrari its third pole of the season, his second consecutive, at the scenic Road Atlanta course in Braselton, Georgia. When the green flag flew on Sunday, James Weaver, who had qualified second, slipped between a pair of Ferraris and passed the number 3 machine of Fermin Velez on the outside at turn 1. Weaver pulled the Ford away from the rest of the field and was leading just 18 minutes into the 3-hour race when Fabrizio Barbaza slid the number 50 Ferrari sideways, entering the front straight, trying to avoid an incident. With nowhere to go, Jeremy Dale struck Barbaza's car broadside, shearing off the back half of the Ferrari. The horrendous crash brought out the red flag, and emergency crews were dispatched to the scene. Barbaza was transported by ambulance, while Dale was cut from the Oldsmobile and airlifted to an Atlanta hospital. The race restarted with 1 hour and 8 minutes remaining, and Weaver still in the lead. Fermin Velez passed the Ford when Weaver was caught in traffic, but the Englishman caught up with the Ferrari, going to the inside. The two cars passed through turn 1 side by side, Weaver emerging with the lead. Suddenly, another serious incident brought out yet another full-course caution in the closing minutes. Weaver earned Ford its first Exxon World Sports Car victory as he drove beneath the yellow and checkered flags. Mauro Baldi and Fermin Velez held on for second, followed by Wayne Taylor and Giampiero Moretti in third. Round 4 took the Exxon World Sports Car Championship north of the border to maritime country, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. The unusual results from Road Atlanta moved Jim Pace into the championship lead with a 12-point advantage. The Moosehead Grand Prix produced yet another pole position for Ferrari, but this time the top starting spot came courtesy of Wayne Taylor and the Momo Danca Ferrari team. Mauro Baldi's qualifying run rounded out a pure Ferrari front row. Jim Pace, the series points leader, and Lee Miller jumped into the Scandia team's Chevy Spice literally minutes before the race when their own Buick Kudzu lost a motor in the morning warm-up. Giampiero Moretti started the number 30 Ferrari alongside Baldi, who jumped to the lead, followed by Frederick Ekblom, filling in for the injured Jeremy Dale. Mauro Baldi held on to the lead after the first round of pit stops, followed by Butch Leitzinger and James Weaver, second and third in the Dyson Fords. Leitzinger closed the gap, but his attempts to get around Baldi's Ferrari were thwarted. When the Scandia team brought the leading Ferrari in for service, Baldi turned the driving over to Fermin Velez. Minutes later, John Paul Jr., who had taken over for Leitzinger, passed Velez for the lead. But Paul's advantage ended on the same lap as Velez slipped down underneath the Ford. With 20 minutes remaining, Velez dove into the pits for a splash of fuel, then sailed under the checkered flag for his second victory of the season. Velez shared the win with Mauro Baldi, Ferrari's test and development driver for the 333 SP, marking the Italian's first World Sports Car victory. Velez and Baldi shared the podium with Dyson team drivers Leitzinger and Paul Jr. Points leader Pace earned fourth spot, while Fermin Velez's Halifax win closed the gap to just 2. IMSA's first Exxon World Sports Car standalone event of the season, Connecticut's Lime Rock Park, produced Ferrari's fifth consecutive pole, the second straight for Wayne Taylor in the Momo Danca Ferrari. James Weaver qualified second, but flat-spotted all 4 tires with a late spin. The team chose to start the Ford on shaved rubber rather than change tires and start at the rear. At the start of the race, Mauro Baldi nosed the number 33 Ferrari beneath Taylor on the inside, while Weaver passed Taylor and Baldi on the outside on the first lap. As Weaver increased his lead to almost 7 seconds over Baldi, Butch Leitzinger passed the Ferrari for second. Then Fermin Velez, who'd moved up to 6th from 13th, spun off course. As Velez continued, Mauro Baldi's Ferrari suddenly slowed at the pit in. Baldi brought the car in with left front body damage and a broken left front tie rod. As Baldi sat on pit lane, the Momo Ferrari pounced, passing the Ford of Butch Leitzinger for second. When the leaders came in for a scheduled stop, he rejoined the race right in front of Taylor, handing over the lead temporarily to Jim Pace until Pace brought the Apple Computer-sponsored Olds in for service. That set up a furious battle between Weaver and Taylor. At 2:45 p.m., Leitzinger crashed hard into the Armco at turn 7, just as Taylor overtook the leader Weaver when the pair encountered traffic. Leitzinger's incident brought out the first full-course caution of the day to pull the car to safety. After the restart, the Dyson team brought Weaver in for a new set of tires and enough fuel to go the distance, dropping the Englishman to third in the process. Weaver moved back up to second, and when Taylor came into the pits for his final stop, Taylor lost the lead as the number 16 Dyson Ford flew past. Minutes later, Taylor had closed that gap and set up the pass along the front straight. Side by side, the pair touched, with Taylor regaining the advantage. Once again, the Ford was in hot pursuit when Weaver almost went off trying to get around Frederick Ekblom's Oldsmobile. Weaver's bid at a second consecutive win ended when he slid off course pursuing the 1994 champion. Taylor's first solo run of the season produced his first ever Exxon World Sports Car victory. Weaver finished second behind Taylor, followed by Fermin Velez in third. By Watkins Glen, Ferrari pilot Fermin Velez had moved into the Exxon World Sports Car Championship lead, 7 points ahead of Jim Pace. Mauro Baldi started from the pole and held the early lead. The first yellow flag was shown on lap 2 when a multi-car incident blocked pit exit. When the race restarted, Baldi pushed his Ferrari out front, then turned the car over to Velez, who returned to the race with the lead, and Wayne Taylor aboard the Momo Ferrari in second. With 1 hour remaining, James Weaver passed both Taylor and Velez, lost the lead temporarily during the last round of pit stops to Bryce Cobb in the Bricks Oldsmobile, then drove on to score his second victory of the season. The 1995 Exxon World Sports Car Championship had begun to take shape after the Glen. Just 16 points separated the top 4 drivers vying for the Exxon World Sports Car title. The series moved west with Fermin Velez still on top of the point standings. But the results from Watkins Glen moved Mauro Baldi up to the second spot ahead of Jim Pace. Despite dismal results at both Daytona and Sebring, James Weaver had climbed to fourth in the standings by mid-season. Ferrari's total domination in qualifying continued when Mauro Baldi set quick time at Sears Point Raceway in Sonoma, California. James Weaver jumped into the early lead at the race start, followed by teammate Butch Leitzinger, while Baldi dropped to fourth on the first lap of the 1 hour 45-minute event. Wayne Taylor's Ferrari dropped from contention in the early going when Taylor entered the pits smoking, a problem that forced the team to retire the Ferrari. With the championship a tight 5-way battle, the DNF would be costly for the defending driving champion shot at a second title. In the closing minutes, Fermin Velez was called to the pits to serve a 5-second stop-and-go penalty for jumping the green flag on an earlier restart. Moments later, the yellow flag came out. A full-course caution to attend to a GTS-1 car stopped at turn 11. When the race restarted, Velez and Leitzinger connected, moving the Spaniard up to second as James Weaver took his third victory of the season. The win moved Weaver up to second in the title chase, just 11 points behind leader Fermin Velez. The Ford versus Ferrari battle heated up further as the series moved once again north of the border into Canada. The Chrysler Mosport 500 featured the first non-Ferrari pole of the season when James Weaver captured fastest overall time on the last lap of qualifying. Andy Wallace started the number 16 Dyson Ford, but was challenged by Fermin Velez deep on the inside entering turn 1. Velez passed Wallace, taking over the early lead. Velez held that lead with the Dyson Fords in hot pursuit, a 3-car train that ducked and dove through traffic when suddenly Scott Watkins lost control of his Oldsmobile. Watkins bounced over the curbing, careened back across the track right over the top of John Paul Jr.'s third-place Dyson racing machine. Watkins' Oldsmobile then tumbled end over end 3.5 times before coming to rest on a concrete barrier. Miraculously, neither driver was injured in the frightening accident. An accident that brought out a full-course caution to clear the wreckage. During the second round of routine pit stops, the leading Scandia Ferrari and the second-place Dyson Ford came in for service simultaneously. Velez got out of the leading Ferrari, handing the car over to Mauro Baldi, while Weaver took over the second-place Dyson machine. But the Dyson crew got Weaver's Ford out of the pits ahead of his nemesis Baldi. The pair continued to run 1-2 until the last round of pit stops. Then they stopped in tandem, but this time the Scandia team got Baldi out ahead of the Ford. The late race restart set up a furious battle between Baldi and Weaver. The two were running nose to tail, with Weaver all over the back of the Ferrari. When Baldi drove wide on the pit straight, Weaver took advantage, but the Ferrari driver moved over against the Ford. The two touched, with Weaver brushing against the pit wall. IMSA brought out the black flag to penalize Mauro Baldi. The unhappy Italian honored the signal, bringing the number 3 Ferrari in for a stop-and-go penalty. Weaver and first-time World Sports Car winner Andy Wallace breezed to the team's 4th victory of the season. Baldi and Fermin Velez held on for second, while the driving team of Wayne Taylor and Gianpiero Moretti finished third. By Texas, the Ford-Ferrari battle was in full tilt when Ferrari brought Michele Alboreto back for reinforcement. The former Formula One winner earned Ferrari yet another pole, followed by Andy Wallace, yet another Ferrari-Ford front row. Alboreto and Mauro Baldi started the Scandia Ferraris, while Wallace and Butch Leitzinger took first stints in the Dyson Fords. On the second lap of the 3-hour race, Wallace attempted to pass the leading Ferrari driven by Alboreto, and the two came together. Alboreto went off as Wallace took the lead, pulling away from the field. When Wallace came in for maintenance under a yellow flag, the Dyson crew lost precious time fitting a new nose, and as the team struggled with the bodywork, the entire field passed by. Wallace was then held at pit exit, putting the number 20 Ford one lap down. A pair of Fords battled 3 Ferraris, exchanging the lead 5 times, and on one conspicuous occasion with the lead not at stake. Wallace passed Alboreto on the inside in slower traffic. Again, the two cars touched, but this time Alboreto responded by driving the Ferrari's nose under Wallace until both cars went off into the dirt. Wallace was stationary as the Ferrari bounced back onto the asphalt. Wayne Taylor had to get on the brakes, causing a 5-car traffic jam. James Weaver took over the leading number 16 Ford from Butch Leitzinger, while Mauro Baldi handed over the number 3 Ferrari to series points leader Fermin Velez during the last round of pit stops. Moments later, Weaver dropped down on the apron and coasted to the pits, the result of a faulty clutch. The Dyson team removed the bodywork to inspect the problem as Weaver was forced to sit and wait on pit lane. Then suddenly, Fermin Velez brought the Ferrari in for unscheduled service, and he too was trapped on pit lane with gearbox troubles. After lengthy repairs, the points leaders limped back out on the racecourse and continued slowly, trying to collect valuable championship points. Meanwhile, Kevin Durand, the Momo Ferrari team manager, called an almost perfect race, and in the closing stages, Wayne Taylor, who had gone the distance solo, found himself one lap up on the second-placed Ferrari of Michele Alboreto. Taylor went on to score an emotional second victory of the season, putting himself right back into the championship hunt. The results from Texas set up a 5-way battle, with just 21 points separating 5 drivers from as many different countries. South African Wayne Taylor, American Jim Pace, Italian Mauro Baldi, Englishman James Weaver, and series points leader Fermin Velez of Spain. Under the lights at Phoenix International Raceway, Velez started the number 3 Ferrari from pole position, alongside his arch-rival Weaver in yet another Ferrari-Ford front row. On the opening lap of the race, Weaver took first position from Velez. But just 3 minutes later, Velez repassed Weaver to claim the point. Velez then stayed out for 53 minutes, longer than any of the other title contenders. He dominated the remainder of the race, putting the entire field down a lap. Weaver was able to get his Ford back up onto the lead lap during the last half hour. But by then, Velez had built a lead that allowed him to pit during the final 15 minutes for fuel only, much to the delight of his team owner, Andy Evans, and the entire Scandia Ferrari crew. Meanwhile, defending driving champion Wayne Taylor suffered a seatbelt problem during a driver change en route to a 5th-place finish, while Mauro Baldi finished 3rd in a race he needed to win to have any shot at the title, and Jim Pace, who once led the points, finished 7th. The Phoenix result made it a 2-man battle, Velez and Weaver for the '95 championship. In the season finale on the streets of New Orleans, Weaver put his Dyson Ford on pole and led until he made his first pit stop. Ross Bentley then took over until he pitted, handing the lead to Weaver's teammate Butch Leitzinger. Emerging from the pits, Weaver was forced to carve his way through the field. He lay 3rd when Wayne Taylor spun, putting Weaver into 2nd. Weaver then passed teammate Leitzinger for the lead and the victory, while Fermin Velez in 4th claimed the 1995 Exxon World Sports Car Championship. Irv Hare earned the inaugural Exxon Supreme GTS-1 pole for Oldsmobile at the series opening twice-around-the-clock Rolex 24 at Daytona International Speedway. The Roush Racing Team returned to the classic event after a 1-year hiatus, a team with a record of 9 wins in as many attempts at the classic enduro. Add the overall defending winners of 1994, the Clayton Cunningham Racing Team of Steve Millen, Johnny O'Connell, and John Morton, and the stage was set. Three teams that combine talent, strategy, and most important, experience, set out to win IMSA's biggest prize of the season. But Nissan's chance to defend their Daytona victory went south in the second hour. Not for the all-new Nissan V8, but for a rash of minor problems. The first bit of adversity struck with O'Connell in the lead. A power steering fluid leak caused a minor fire, forcing him to stop on course. O'Connell removed the bonnet, then gestured frantically for help. The fire was extinguished, but the Nissan had lost the lead. By dusk, Tom Kendall, Mark Martin, Mike Brockman, and Paul Newman's number 70 Roush Racing Ford Mustang had taken the lead, an advantage that would last all through the night. The pole-winning number 4 Oldsmobile's chance at victory ended Sunday morning when the car was pushed back to the paddock to sort out overheating problems after running as high as 5th overall. Late in the 18th hour, Price Cobb brought the number 5 Oldsmobile in with a broken differential seal, losing 4th place in the overall standings. The Nobody's Fool-sponsored number 70 Mustang, numbered for Newman's age, had a close call when the car went off course with less than 4 hours to go. Kendall brought the Mustang in for service, handing it over to Mike Brockman. In the closing minutes, Mark Martin brought the Ford in for the final pit stop, and Paul Newman climbed aboard the leading GTS-1 machine. Newman drove to victory, making history on 2 counts, as the oldest driver to start and the oldest driver to win the Daytona 24-hour race. The Victory Lane celebration marked Roush Racing's impressive 10th Daytona Endurance victory, posting 3rd overall. Irv Hare earned his 2nd consecutive pole of the season at the Exxon MasterCard 12 Hours of Sebring, the first for the all-new Aurora V8-powered Oldsmobile. But the Nissan team took over the lead on the opening lap of the rigorous 12-hour event with defending series champion Steve Millen at the helm. Nearing the end of the second hour, the skies opened, bringing out the yellow flag for torrential conditions. During the third hour, Hans Stuck, the undisputed rain maestro, began his assault on the field, passing every class of car. Stuck put on a riveting display of unique foul-weather driving skill, picking off car after car in the wet. The Austrian used his high-tech defroster in very low visibility to run down the GTS-1 leader, Johnny O'Connell. But Stuck's lead aboard the latest evolution of the Porsche 911 Turbo lasted only as long as Mother Nature would cooperate. As the rain tapered off, O'Connell took back the lead. But once again, Mother Nature reared her head just before the 8th hour, and this time with a force of rain that brought out the red flag. After the restart, the Nissan team maintained control of the lead as darkness fell over Sebring. Steve Millen took the checkered flag, proving the reliability of the Nissan V8, sharing the victory with Johnny O'Connell and John Morton. Nissan's first win of the season gave the Cunningham Racing team their 3rd consecutive Sebring title. Johnny O'Connell and Steve Millen entered Road Atlanta as co-leaders in the Exxon Supreme GTS-1 Drivers' Championship, followed closely by Oldsmobile's lead drivers Darren Brassfield and Irv Hare. The Bricks team earned their 3rd consecutive pole position, with top honors going to Brassfield. Millen passed Brassfield for the lead in the opening minutes, with Brassfield and Hare in pursuit. But Millen's advantage was short-lived, as pole sitter Brassfield repassed the Nissan for the lead. Millen ran 3rd behind the Oldsmobiles when a huge multi-car accident on the front straight brought out the red flag. The race was restarted 90 minutes later, and Millen dropped from 3rd when the Cunningham team serviced the Nissan under green. Millen was running just ahead of Brassfield when he and Freddie Lienhard in a Ferrari 333 SP made contact. Their heavy impact forced Millen's Nissan off the track and hard into the guardrail. The car came to rest on the embankment as IMSA dispatched safety crews to the crash site. Millen sustained injuries in the high-speed accident that would sideline the defending driving champion for the rest of the season. The race ended under yellow, with Irv Hare in the lead, followed by Brassfield, while Charles and Rob Morgan drove the number 47 Axiom Oldsmobile to their first podium finish of the year. Hare left Atlanta with the Exxon GTS-1 driver's points lead, just 1 marker ahead of teammate Darren Brassfield. The series moved north and east to Nova Scotia, Canada for round 4 of the Exxon Supreme GTS-1 Championship. Team Nissan worked overtime between races, preparing a backup 300ZX for Johnny O'Connell. Irv Hare collected the 4th straight pole for Oldsmobile along the tight temporary circuit, followed by O'Connell in 2nd. Darren Brassfield's number 5 machine was the first Oldsmobile to drop from the 3-hour race, the result of a pump failure while running second. That left Hare to battle O'Connell's Nissan. Hare reported a minor vibration with just minutes remaining as he brought his Oldsmobile in for service. The problem proved terminal when a drive shaft failed 1 lap later. That left O'Connell unchallenged for the lead, ultimately earning his 2nd victory of the season. Hare was still posted second, holding on to the Exxon GTS-1 points lead, while O'Connell's victory moved him up a notch to second in the standings, ahead of Brassfield. Darren Brassfield put the number 5 Aurora V8-powered Oldsmobile on pole for the 55-minute sprint event at Connecticut's Lime Rock Park. Brassfield handled the early lead with teammate Irv Hare just behind in second, followed by Johnny O'Connell. Canadian Scott Maxwell pushed his Ford Mustang Cobra ahead of the Nissan. O'Connell moved back up to third, then both he and Hare challenged Brassfield for the lead. But suddenly, in the closing minutes, O'Connell slowed, and his race went up in a cloud of smoke as he parked the Nissan just off course. Brassfield led wire to wire, earning his first victory since Phoenix in 1993. Hare finished second, while O'Connell's mishap elevated Scott Maxwell to third for his first GTS-1 podium finish. Irv Hare entered the Glen Continental with the biggest points advantage of the season, while O'Connell's 8th place at Lime Rock dropped him back to third in the standings. Irv Hare continued Oldsmobile's pole winning streak with a 5th consecutive fast time for the 3-hour event. A pair of Oldsmobiles took the early lead, followed by O'Connell in third. The Nissan moved up to second, but was overtaken by Brassfield in the number 5 Olds. But O'Connell's hopes were dashed again when the Nissan stopped on course and was towed to the pits with an electrical problem, dropping the team from contention. Meanwhile, Brassfield came in for complete brake service, losing valuable time and the lead lap in the pits. Irv Hare brought the leading Oldsmobile in for his final stop, then drove on to his 2nd win of the season. Hans Stuck and Bill Adams shared 2nd place, with the father-son driving team of Charles and Rob Morgan 3rd. The results from the Glen extended Hare's lead in the championship, retained Brassfield's runner-up spot, dropped O'Connell to 4th, and elevated Rob Morgan to 3rd. At Sears Point, Darren Brassfield showed why they call him King of the Hills, earning Oldsmobile its 7th straight pole, followed by O'Connell in 2nd and Hare in 3rd. Brassfield controlled the early lead with the other Sears Point aficionado, O'Connell, directly on his heels. Brassfield relinquished the lead to O'Connell during the first scheduled pit stop, but caught back up to the Nissan, and the pair displayed side-by-side action that put Brassfield back out front. O'Connell's pit stop gave Brassfield a huge advantage that ended suddenly when fading brakes caused him to spin at turn 11. That mishap brought out the yellow flag, ending Brassfield's day while elevating O'Connell to a much-needed victory. Charles Morgan finished 2nd, followed by Hans Stuck. O'Connell turned up at the Chrysler Mosport 500 without his familiar Nissan or the Cunningham Racing crew, who'd elected to sit out the Canadian event. His California win moved him back up the points chart to 3rd, a scant 1 point ahead of Rob Morgan. The ever-resourceful O'Connell signed up with the Team Peru Ford and almost captured pole, but was upset by series points leader Irv Hare in the closing minutes of qualifying. O'Connell got past the leading Oldsmobile on the first lap of the 3-hour event, then gave up that lead when he came into the pits for routine maintenance during the first yellow flag. The 1st and 2nd place Oldsmobiles stopped for service during the 2nd yellow, brought out to clear debris from a crash at turn 2. Hare got out of the pits, but Brassfield's Oldsmobile required additional time to bleed the brakes. Then Brassfield worked his way back up to the top of the field, passing teammate Hare, who was leading at the time. Hare's day ended halfway into the 2nd hour when he stopped on course with a broken drive shaft. Minutes later, Johnny O'Connell cut a tire, sending him back to the pits for repairs. Rob Morgan moved up to 2nd as O'Connell dropped back to 3rd. Then suddenly, Darren Brassfield lost an engine and the lead in the closing minutes, parking the Oldsmobile just past the starter's box opposite pit lane. Rob Morgan drove the number 47 Axiom Oldsmobile beneath the checkered flag, and the father-son driving team celebrated their inaugural Exxon Supreme GTS-1 victory on the Mosport podium. There was even more to celebrate. The Morgans and their privateer team earned Oldsmobile its 100th victory in IMSA competition. Johnny O'Connell held on to 2nd, earning valuable points toward his championship run. O'Connell's second-place finish ahead of the Oldsmobiles at Mosport Park put him back onto the championship trail. O'Connell finally upset the Bricks Racing team's fast qualifying streak, earning pole for Nissan at the Seitel, Texas World Grand Prix. But the Nissan driver was caught in traffic at the green flag as Darren Brassfield took over the lead going into the first turn. Eduardo Dibos lost time in the pits when the right front tire ripped off its rim, taking chunks of bodywork with it and leaving Dibos inconveniently located at pit out. O'Connell was sitting third when the Nissan and second-place number 4 Oldsmobile of Irv Hare came into the pits at the same time under yellow. The Cunningham Racing crew got O'Connell out ahead of Hare, moving the Nissan up to second with Brassfield still in the lead. O'Connell took over that lead when Hare came in for service, but any chance at victory ended when the Nissan caught fire at turn 10. The Bricks team's pit strategy gave Irv Hare his 35th IMSA career victory, clinching the manufacturer's championship for Oldsmobile. 35 points separated the top 5 Exxon Supreme GTS-1 drivers, with Irv Hare on top of the point standings with just 2 races remaining. Those 5 title contenders became 2 under the lights at Phoenix, Arizona, where mechanical gremlins felled O'Connell in the Nissan. Meanwhile, Hare and Brassfield finished first and second, leaving it to the Oldsmobile teammates to decide the 95 driver's title. In the season finale on the streets of New Orleans, Louisiana, O'Connell led the surprising Chevrolet Camaro of Stu Hainer. Meanwhile, up front, Hare battled with Brassfield until the young Californian suffered troubles. In the end, it was Irv Hare, the most successful production-based driver in IMSA history, taking victory over Johnny O'Connell and Charles Morgan. That victory gave Irv Hare the margin to claim the 1995 IMSA Exxon Supreme GTS-1 championship. The season opened at Daytona International Speedway with the number 12 BMW M3 of Dieter Quester on the pole. The number 54 Porsche was running second behind the number 85 911 RSR during the first hour, when the number 85 machine was forced to pit in the second hour with a cut right rear tire. The BMW of Boris Said was leading during the third hour when the car was pushed behind the wall with terminal engine problem. That put the number 54 Porsche 911 up front for a near-perfect run. The European driving team of Enzo Calderari, Lilian Breiner, and Renato Mastropietro, teamed with last year's class winner Ulrich Richter, earned the Exxon Supreme GTS-2 Daytona 24-hour victory. Round 2 at the historic Sebring circuit produced a new pole winner, and Italy's Ruggero Melgrati set fast time in the number 80 Ferrari 308. In the opening minutes of the rigorous 12-hour event, Californian Bill Auberlen moved his Porsche from third to the Exxon Supreme GTS-2 lead. Auberlen came in for routine service, handing his car over to Joe Cogville. But Auberlen had exceeded the pit lane speed limit, and IMSA handed out a stop-and-go penalty, moving the Nissan up front. During hour 2, Cogville had regained the lead for the Alex Job Racing team. But dark storm clouds rolled in over central Florida, and soon after the skies opened and heavy rain fell on Sebring. Standing water, wind, and more rain made for treacherous conditions during Charlie Slater's stint in the leading GTS-2 Porsche. He went off course twice without serious mishap, holding on to the class lead in the process. Street stock veteran Andy Pilgrim took a turn up front in the 02 Porsche 911. But the early evening hours showed the number 93 Nissan back out front, while the 02 Porsche dropped back 1 position with Auberlen running third. As weather conditions deteriorated, Taleb went off track moments before the red flag was shown. When the race restarted at just before 7:30 p.m., Slater was back in the lead. Joe Cogville and Charlie Slater shared their first ever IMSA victory, the legendary 12 Hours of Sebring, with Bill Auberlen. While Henry Taleb and Rob Wilson shared top billing in the championship points, a mere 5-point margin separated the top 7 Exxon Supreme GTS-2 drivers with 2 rounds complete. Team Peru's Eduardo Dibos was welcomed back for round 3 at Road Atlanta after health concerns necessitated a temporary leave of absence. Dibos, runner-up in the 1994 class title, put his familiar Yokohama Mazda RX-7 on the pole. But a pair of Porsche 911s passed Dibos in the early stages of the 3-hour race, dropping him to third. Bill Auberlen and Dennis Ozzie pulled away from the field, stretching their lead over the Peruvian. Ossie got around Oberlin for the lead, but it was short-lived as Oberlin drove past the number 55 Porsche. Then a huge crash on the front straight brought out the red flag as emergency crews were dispatched to the scene. 90 minutes later, the race was restarted, and moments after that, Dibos passed for the lead. The winner of the 1994 Exxon Supreme GTU Most Improved Driver title won his first 1995 outing at Road Atlanta. The series moved north of the border to the temporary facility at Halifax, Nova Scotia. Although Bill Oberlin turned in the fastest times in practice, pole went to another Porsche, the number 55 machine of Dennis Ossie, on the last lap of qualifying. But Oberlin took command of the GTS-2 field at the race onset and held that lead through the first round of pit stops. Jorge Trejos handed the second-place number 55 Porsche over to Dennis Ossie, while Oberlin turned the leading Porsche over to Charlie Slater. With less than 1 hour remaining in the 3-hour event, Ossie overtook the number 26 Porsche and drove on to his first win of the season with co-driver Trejos, followed by Oberlin and Slater in second. By Lime Rock Park, Dennis Ossie and Jorge Trejos were tied for the Exxon Supreme GTS-2 points lead with 97, followed by Charlie Slater and Bill Oberlin. Oberlin earned the pole amid the beautiful Berkshire Mountains, back in his familiar blue and orange number 19 Mazda RX-7. Yellow flags flew just 3 minutes into the race when John Paul Jr.'s number 07 BMW M3 went off into the trees at turn 2. Henry Taylor, who had picked up the lead before the caution period, was being pursued by Oberlin when the race resumed. Oberlin finally pulled off the pass, then increased his lead over the Nissan to more than 2 seconds. Jack Lewis got some assistance from Irv Hare at turn 5, but was able to continue while Oberlin amassed more than 7 seconds on the GTS-2 field. Dibos moved up to second, passing Henry Taleb's Nissan, then slid off the track sidelong into the tire barrier. Dibos tried to continue, but pulled off into the grass at turn 7. Bill Oberlin drove unchallenged to the checkered flag, 1 lap up on the GTS-2 field, earning his second victory of the year. Henry Taleb held on for second, while David Donahue posted BMW's best finish of the season in third. Bill Oberlin moved to the top of the championship chart with his victory at Lime Rock, then earned another pole at Watkins Glen aboard the number 19 Mazda. Oberlin teamed with Henry Taleb for the upstate New York event, started the Mazda, then held the leading position for the first 2 hours. The number 06 BMW M3 of David Donahue lost position just before the first round of pit stops when the right front wheel popped off while running third. With 7 minutes remaining, Englishman Andy Pilgrim passed for the lead, giving Pilgrim and Larry Schumacher their maiden Exxon Supreme GT victory. Oberlin and Taleb finished second, followed by Dennis Ossie and Jorge Trejos in third. Bill Oberlin continued to lead the Exxon Supreme GTS-2 points when the series moved west to his home state, California. Sears Point Raceway denoted the halfway mark of the 1995 season, and still just 20 points separated the top 4 spots in the championship standing. Bill Oberlin earned his third straight pole by a huge margin, starting the 45-minute standalone sprint race from the top spot. Oberlin pulled away from the field, while local Monterey, California entrant Kevin Buckler seemed to be the only driver able to keep contact with the leading Mazda. Suddenly, however, Oberlin slowed, and Buckler drove his brand new 96-hour-old Porsche 911 to a surprise victory. Oberlin's troubles dropped him to next to last, while Jack Lewis finished second, with another local driver, Dwayne Ablamus, finishing third. The results from Sears Point didn't figure into Bill Oberlin's championship strategy. He lost the points lead to Costa Rica's Jorge Trejos. When the series toured north again to Canada's Mosport Park, Oberlin rallied back with his 4th pole of the season. Oberlin came to Mosport without a co-driver, unsure of his chance at victory based on fuel consumption and possible driver fatigue. Charlie Slater found a co-driver on site, Richard Spinard, a 20-time Mosport winner. Oberlin built his race lead to more than 8 seconds, and then things started to go wrong. He was penalized 10 seconds for a fuel spill in the pits. Then a brake rotor failed, sending Oberlin into the tire wall at turn 3 with less than 1 hour to go. Oberlin lost 10 minutes in the pits, then rejoined the race with considerable bodywork missing on the number 19 Mazda. Jack Lewis took over the lead, but was being stalked by Jorge Trejos' new teammate, Joe Vardy, who overtook the number 73 Porsche in the closing minutes. That late race pass earned Jorge Trejos the Esso Canadian Cup, an award presented to the World Sports Car or Supreme GT driver earning the most points at Halifax and Mosport. It also gave Trejos a 26-point advantage over Oberlin, who finished 11th in class. Oberlin clinched yet another pole position along the high banks at Texas World Speedway for the 9th round of Exxon Supreme GT2 competition. The real battle developed during the final 30 minutes when Oberlin used the number 2 Oldsmobile World Sports Car to get around class leader Joe Vardy. Vardy then repassed Oberlin on the same lap, taking him on the outside along the 22-degree banking. But Vardy's lead only lasted for 3 turns. The fabulous battle went on and on, with at least 1 lead change per lap. While Vardy's Porsche was stronger on the high-speed banking, Oberlin's Mazda outperformed the Porsche on the infield road course. The young Californian outgunned the savvy 20-year veteran for the win, finally breaking a string of bad luck that had haunted him since Sears Point. The Texas shootout set the stage for a 3-way battle between Charlie Slater, Bill Oberlin, and series points leader Jorge Trejos, with 2 rounds remaining. On the combined oval and road course at Phoenix, Arizona, Slater was a spectator, while Oberlin and Trejos made it 4 wide into turn 1 with the BMWs of David Donahue and John Paul Jr. Later at the same corner, Slater went inside but found himself spinning off the racetrack, taking Jack Lewis with him, and with it, any shot at a title for Slater. Trejos passed John Paul Jr. briefly for 3rd, but then slipped back to 4th. Meanwhile, Oberlin was out front and running away, his 2nd victory in a row, making it a 2-man shootout for the title on the streets of New Orleans, Louisiana. For Oberlin, it was the chance to come from nowhere to a championship. But in the Big Easy, Oberlin crashed in practice, destroying his Mazda. But Charlie Slater, in an effort of supreme sportsmanship, stepped forward to offer his Porsche, which Oberlin then put on pole. He led from flag to flag, but Trejos finished 4th, giving him enough points to claim the 1995 GTS-2 title.
I've always wanted to do Pikes Peak.
The 1995 Bridgestone Supercar Championship opened at Sebring, Florida, where Bo Lemler's Lotus X180R started from the pole when the top 8 positions were inverted. Shane Lewis moved his Chevrolet Corvette up front for the first 8 laps before handing over the lead to Randy Pope's Ed Arnold Racing BMW M5. With 2 laps remaining, Jacksonville's Sean Rowe, who had moved up from 8th place, passed for the lead, then drove his Greenwood Racing Corvette to the first victory of the 1995 season. Round 2 along the classic street course at Long Beach, California, produced the first starting pole of the season for Sebring winner Sean Rowe. Rowe dominated the 26-lap event, earning his 2nd consecutive victory of the season. Sean Hendricks brought the number 4 BMW M5 home 2nd, followed by Peter Farrell in 3rd. At Connecticut's Lime Rock Park, John Schneider inherited the pole from the 8th spot by way of series rules. But the Texan lost the lead on lap 1 when he was overtaken by the Mazda RX-7 Turbo of Peter Farrell. The BMWs of Randy Pobst and Sean Hendricks then passed the leading Mazda on lap 2. Hendricks set out in hot pursuit of his teammate, then got around Pobst for the lead on lap 6. Hendricks and Pobst earned BMW their first 1-2 finish of the season, followed by Andy Pilgrim's Lotus X180R in 3rd. Hendricks' victory at Lime Rock put him out front in the Bridgestone Supercar Championship points, 13 ahead of 2-time winner Sean Rowe. Sean Hendricks brought the Ed Arnold Racing Dodge Stealth to Pikes Peak on Independence Day rather than his race-winning BMW M5, then put the car on the hill climb pole. Rain, hail, sleet, and snow conditions shortened the course to 8.5 miles for the first time in 73 years, when race organizers opted to flag the event at Devil's Playground rather than the customary summit. Hendricks' decision to field the Dodge paid off when he took his 2nd straight victory by a margin of almost 37 seconds. The Sean and Sean show was postponed when Rowe finished 7th. Elliott Forbes Robinson drove the number 73 Daltech Racing Nissan 300 ZX Turbo SMZ to 2nd, followed by Peter Farrell's Mazda in 3rd. The series moved to the wine country of Northern California for round 5 at Sears Point Raceway. David Daugherty started from the pole, but was passed by Shawn Hendricks on the first lap. Hendricks led all 17 laps, earning his 3rd consecutive victory, while Daugherty posted his best finish of the season in his Nissan 300 ZX Turbo SMZ, 2nd, followed by Peter Farrell again in 3rd. Elliott Forbes Robinson earned his first top qualifying spot at Mid-Ohio, but started 6th when the top 6 were reversed. That put Randy Pobst and the number 2 BMW M5 on pole. But Pobst's advantage was short-lived when Shane Lewis passed for the lead on the opening lap. Lewis led every lap, earning his first victory of the 1995 season for the Coons Hardware Chevy Corvette LT1 team. Hendricks posted 2nd, followed by Ed Arnold Racing teammate Randy Pobst in 3rd. When the series moved west and north to the Laguna Seca circuit, newcomer Martin Snow turned in the fast time in a Porsche 911 Turbo owned by wife Melanie. Shane Lewis started from the pole and led the first 3 laps before being passed by the BMW of Pobst when he spun on course. Then Pobst went off the racetrack, handing the lead over to Hendricks, who drove on to his 4th win of the season. Snow finished 2nd, followed by another series newcomer, Javier Quiros, driving his Dennis Ossie-prepared Toyota Supra Turbo to 3rd. Shane Lewis inherited the pole from Shawn Hendricks at the next-to-last round at Phoenix, Arizona, then held on to the early lead. Lap 18 saw plenty of action when both Doc Bundy and Javier Quiros went off course into the desert sand, creating enormous dust clouds, completely enveloping both cars. Lewis led all 26 laps, earning his 2nd victory of the season. Randy Pobst finished 2nd. Shawn Hendricks' 3rd place finish clinched the 1995 Bridgestone Supercar Championship with 1 race remaining. Martin Snow secured his 2nd fast qualifying time at New Orleans, but relinquished the pole to Richard Ramist's Porsche RSR. Randy Pobst took the early lead, but was passed by Shawn Hendricks on lap 9. Dave Daugherty, winner of the Bridgestone Rising Star Award, lost control of his Nissan 300 ZX Turbo on lap 10, impacting the barrier wall, bringing out a full-course caution that brought the race to an early close. Hendricks earned his 5th victory of the season when he passed under the yellow and checkered flags, closing the year with a better than 50% win average for the season. Shane Lewis brought his number 27 Corvette home 2nd, earning the runner-up spot in the 1995 IMSA Bridgestone Supercar Championship. Toyo Tire joined IMSA's 1995 Endurance Championship, bringing their Proxys RA1 tires to the series. Lap speeds improved more than 2 seconds per lap, while average fields increased 24% over the previous year. In the Grand Sports Division, 9-year veteran Andy Pilgrim came out on top of the championship, driving the number 18 wheel-to-wheel Pontiac Firebird Formula. Teamed with Joe Vardy, the pair earned victories at Road Atlanta, Sears Point, Phoenix, New Orleans, and the Sebring Finale 1. Pilgrim teamed with Pontiac teammates Doug Goad and Cat Teasdale to win the Sebring Finale 2 after the number 18 machine retired, clinching the Grand Sports title at the season ender. Pilgrim's impressive 6 wins, 1 runner-up, and 2 third-place finishes contributed notably to Pontiac's Manufacturer Championship. Pilgrim's teammate Joe Vardy finished 2nd in the championship. 2-time 1995 winners Doug Goad and Cat Teasdale finished the season tied for 3rd, and Teasdale made history as the first overall woman IMSA Endurance Championship winner at Watkins Glen. One of the 2 remaining victories went to Danny Candia and Peter Farrell's Mazda RX-7 team in the closest margin of victory in series history, less than 0.2 of a second at the season opener at Sebring. The 2nd victory was earned by Stu Hainer and John Heinrichsey, driving the Phoenix American Motorsports Pontiac at the high-speed 6-hour race at Texas World Speedway. The Honda of America race team's Forrest Granlund seemed unbeatable during 1995, taking the first 5 wins of the sports division. Granlund drove the number 92 Honda Prelude VTEC to 1 additional victory at the Sebring 1 finale and to a respectable 3rd, 4th, and 5th place finish in 3 additional outings. A total of 6 wins in 9 events clinched Granlund's 2nd consecutive Sports Division Driving Championship. Granlund's 1995 results also played a major role in earning IMSA's Car of the Year honors for the Honda Prelude VTEC model and the 3rd straight sports manufacturer's title for Honda. Honda earned every 1995 Sports Division victory, with a pair of wins going to Chris Wilson and Hugh Johnson at New Orleans and the Sebring Finale 2. while Kelly Collins and Brett Martini earned top honors at round 6 at Phoenix International Raceway. John Green was a 7-time Touring Division winner. 7 wins, 1 second, and a single 6th place finish earned the Roseville, California resident his 2nd Touring Class championship, driving the number 38 T.I. Smith Barney Racing Honda Prelude SI. Green earned Honda 5 of the manufacturer's 6 division pole positions during 1995. 7 wins in 9 attempts earned Honda its 6th straight class manufacturer title. The Touring Class produced the first American husband and wife professional road racing win for Randy and Linda Popst, driving T.C. Klein's Honda Prelude SI at Watkins Glen. Bill Pate, Joe Nonamaker, and Alistair Ogue earned the only non-Honda class win, driving their Mazda MX-6 to victory at Texas. IMSA reintroduced the compact class in 1995, creating a racing forum for cars like Mazda Miatas and Dodge Neons. Chris Gavnes drove his number 66 Honda of America race team Accord EX to 6 victories on his way to the compact class driving title. Like Granlund's effort, Scavnes Accord EX is prepared by employees of Honda's Marysville, Ohio plant, and like Granlund's team, contributed notably to the manufacturer's championship for compact cars. The Oldsmobile Achieva S model took 3 class wins in 1995. Ed Magner and Buddy Norton shared victories at Watkins Glen and the Sebring Finale 2, while Chuck Hemmingson and Ron Emick took the top spot for Oldsmobile at Sears Point.